Before the sold-out stadiums, before the leather pants, and long before he became the global face of INXS, Michael Hutchence was just a boy with a slightly British accent and a pocket full of poems. To the world, he was the ultimate rock god, a mix of Jim Morrison's mystery and Mick Jagger's swagger. But the man who would eventually command the stage at Wembley started his journey in a much quieter, more fragmented way. To understand the magnetic, often elusive performer he became, we have to look past the neon lights of the 1980s and back to the quiet suburbs of Sydney and the bustling, humid streets of 1960s Hong Kong. This is the story of Michael Hutchence's childhood, the making of a legend. Michael Hutchence entered the world on January 22, 1960, at the Mater Misericordiae Hospital in North Sydney. He was the firstborn son of Kelland Hutchence and Patricia Glassop. Kel was a sharp, ambitious businessman with a background in the military and international trade, while Patricia was a striking former model who had transitioned into a career as a high-end film and television makeup artist. Their home in Lane Cove was an English-style cottage built by Michael's grandfather, a sea captain. This heritage of the sea and travel seemed to be baked into Michael's DNA from the very beginning. Michael wasn't the only child in the household. He joined an older half-sister, Tina, from his mother's first marriage. 2 years after Michael's arrival, his younger brother Rhett was born. From the start, Michael was described by his father as an adorable baby with a sweet nature. He wasn't a fussy child. He was observant and quick to smile. But that quiet sweetness hid a restless spirit. The stability of Sydney wouldn't last long, as the Hutchence family was about to become part of the global expatriate community. In 1964, when Michael was just 4 years old, Kel's career as an importer took the family to Hong Kong. This wasn't just a brief relocation. It was where Michael would spend the majority of his formative years, from the age of 4 until 12. For a young Australian boy, Hong Kong in the 1960s was a sensory explosion. The family lived in a large apartment on Old Peak Road, midway up the mountain overlooking the harbour. It was a world of Blade Runner aesthetics long before the movie existed, a blend of ancient Chinese tradition and British colonial modernity. Michael attended schools managed by the English Schools Foundation, Glenelly, Beacon Hill, and eventually King George V. It was here that Michael's sense of otherness began to take shape. He was an Australian kid in a British colonial school system, surrounded by children from all over the world. This international upbringing gave him a unique perspective. He never felt tied to just one identity. He developed a mid-Atlantic or slightly British accent that would stick with him for the rest of his life, often confusing Australians who met him later. While he would eventually be known for his voice, Michael's first passion was the water. He was a competitive swimmer and a brave, almost reckless diver. His mother Patricia once recalled a story of an 8-year-old Michael climbing to the very top of a diving board at a local club. He stood at the edge, looked down at the deep blue water, and waved his arms to the crowd before jumping. It was a small moment, but it was a sign of things to come. He was a boy who loved the spotlight and was always willing to go all the way for a reaction. There is a fascinating piece of trivia about Michael's childhood that many fans overlook. His professional debut didn't happen in a pub or a garage, but in a toy store. At the age of 8, a local Hong Kong toy company was looking for a child to record a voice for one of their products. Michael was chosen to sing a series of Christmas carols. His voice was recorded onto a small plastic disc encased inside a Santa Claus doll. Thousands of children in Hong Kong were falling asleep to the voice of a future rock icon before Michael even knew what a rock star was. During these Hong Kong years, Michael was also a frequent visitor to the Shaw Brothers studio, where his mother Patricia worked as a makeup artist for major film stars. He would sit silently on movie sets for hours, fascinated by the mechanics of storytelling. He wasn't just watching the actors, he was watching the lighting, the camera angles, and the way a persona was built from the ground up through costume and makeup. This exposure to the illusion of fame gave him a sophisticated understanding of image long before he became a public figure himself. He saw that a star wasn't just born, a star was crafted. In 1972, the family returned to Australia, settling in the northern beaches of Sydney. For 12-year-old Michael, this was a massive culture shock. He had spent his most important years in a global metropolis, and now he was dropped into the middle of suburban Sydney. He famously nicknamed the area Sausage Hill because of the endless weekend barbecues that seemed to be the only form of entertainment. He arrived at Davidson High School with his international accent and a shy, introspective demeanour. In the brutal world of 1970s Australian high schools, where mateship and sports were the only currencies that mattered, being different made you an immediate target. Michael was bullied. He was teased for his voice and his lack of interest in traditional Australian sports like rugby. He felt like an outsider in his own country, but fate was about to intervene. One afternoon, a fellow student named Andrew Farris stepped in to break up a fight where Michael was being cornered by a school bully. Andrew was a talented musician from a musical family, and he saw something in Michael that others didn't. They became fast friends, bonded by a mutual feeling of being outsiders. While other kids were out drinking or playing sports, Andrew and Michael were in the Farris family garage, discussing poetry, philosophy, and the records they were buying. At this point, Michael still didn't play an instrument, and he didn't even think he could sing. He viewed himself primarily as a poet. He filled notebooks with lyrics and observations that he never intended for anyone to hear. Andrew, however, was a visionary. He realized that Michael's words had a rhythm to them, and he began to nudge his friend toward the microphone. Just as Michael was finding his footing in Sydney and building his friendship with the Farris brothers, his world was pulled apart again. In 1975, when Michael was 15, his parents announced they were separating. The divorce was messy and emotionally draining. Patricia decided to move to California to pursue her makeup career in Hollywood, and in a move that would have a profound impact on his development, she took Michael with her, while Rhett stayed in Sydney with Kel. Michael spent a year at North Hollywood High School. This period is often a footnote in his biography, but it was crucial for his cool factor. In the US, he was exposed to the burgeoning Los Angeles music scene, the glam rock remnants, and the early flickers of the punk and new wave movements. He saw how American teenagers expressed themselves, which was vastly different from the more conservative Australian youth culture. He became even more introspective, diving deeper into his poetry as a way to cope with the loneliness of being in yet another new country. But the pull of Australia and the pull of the Farris brothers was too strong. After a year in California, Michael made the difficult decision to leave his mother and return to Sydney to live with his father and brother. He reunited with Andrew Farris almost immediately, and the creative spark between them was reignited. Upon his return, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Andrew had a band called Dr. Dolphin, which featured bassist Gary Beers. Michael joined as the singer, despite his crippling stage fright. In those early rehearsals, he would often sing with his back to the room or hide behind a curtain. He didn't have the rock star confidence yet. He was still the shy kid from Hong Kong trying to find his voice. In 1977, the group evolved into the Farris brothers, featuring all three Farris siblings, Tim, Andrew, and John, along with their high school friend Kirk Pengilly and Gary Beers. They played their very first gig on August 16, 1977. In a strange twist of musical fate, that was the same day the world learned that Elvis Presley had died. It was as if a vacuum had been created in the world of rock and roll, and these 6 young men from Sydney were stepping in to eventually fill a part of it. The early years of the band were a school of hard knocks. They didn't start in theatres. They started in the roughest bikie pubs in Australia. These were dangerous venues where the audience would throw bottles if they didn't like the music. For Michael, this was the ultimate trial by fire. He had to learn how to command a room of hostile strangers. He realized that if he stayed shy, he would be eaten alive. This is where the theatrical training he received by watching his mother on movie sets in Hong Kong came into play. Michael began to craft a persona. He used his hair, his movements, and his gaze to create a barrier between his private self and the public performer. He learned that the stage was a place where he could be anyone he wanted to be. The boy who was bullied at Davidson High was replaced by a charismatic, lithe frontman who seemed to possess an ancient, soulful energy. By the time the band changed their name to INXS in 1979, the foundation of Michael's character was set. He was a product of 3 different continents: the grit and honesty of Australia, the glamour and cinematic scale of Hong Kong, and the rebellious spirit of California. If you look closely at Michael Hutchence's career, you can see the echoes of his childhood in every song. The internationalism of INXS, their ability to blend funk, rock, and new wave, came from his years in the melting pot of Hong Kong. His legendary stage presence, the way he could seduce an entire stadium with just a look, came from his understanding of the image he learned at the Shaw Brothers studio. Even his lyrics, which were often deeply personal and cryptic, were the evolution of the poetry he wrote while hiding from bullies in the school library or sitting alone in a North Hollywood apartment. Michael once reflected on his upbringing, saying, "I'm Australian for sure, but I lived in Hong Kong until I was 12. I've always felt like I belonged everywhere and nowhere at the same time." That sense of being a global citizen allowed INXS to transcend the pub rock tag that limited so many other Australian bands. They weren't just a local act, they were a world act. As we look back at the life of Michael Hutchence, it's easy to focus on the peak of his fame, the Kick album, the supermodel girlfriends, and the tragic end. But the real story is in the boy who stood on the high dive in Hong Kong, waving his arms before he jumped. It's in the boy who sang Christmas carols for a toy doll. It's in the teenager who chose to return to his friends in Sydney because he knew they were his true tribe. Michael Hutchence would go on to become one of the greatest frontmen in history, a man whose magnetism is still studied by performers today. But at his core, he remained that sensitive, observant child who saw the world through a different lens. He was a man of contradictions, a shy poet who became one of the most desired men on earth, a global nomad who always longed for home, and a kid from Sausage Hill who conquered the world. The childhood of Michael Hutchence wasn't just a series of events. It was a carefully constructed apprenticeship for the life he would eventually lead. Every move, every culture shock, and every friendship played a part in creating the man we remember. He may have left us too soon, but the voice that started in a recording booth at 8 years old continues to echo in the hearts of millions of fans around the globe. If you found this exploration of Michael's early years insightful, please consider subscribing to Strange Words Music. We are dedicated to uncovering the deep histories, the hidden lyrics, and the untold stories of the artists who shaped our world. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into music history, and let us know in the comments which artist's childhood we should explore next. Thank you for watching and for being part of our community. Stay devoted.